Titled The Tapestry of America, Emily's Road to Self-Discovery. In the small, picturesque town of Willow Creek, nestled in the green, quiet heartland of Ohio, lived a young woman named Emily Carter. Willow Creek was a haven of predictability, where life moved at the pace of the seasons, yet Emily felt a stirring restlessness. She had an indomitable spirit, fueled by the worn pages of her grandfather's travel journals and the dusty, dog-eared maps he'd left behind. For 25 years, she had listened to tales of brave pioneers and explorers, and the conviction grew. It was time to stop dreaming and start doing. With a modest savings, a meticulously highlighted map of the United States taped to her car's dashboard, and a backpack holding only the true essentials, Emily sold what little she owned and set off. She named her car, a reliable but old sedan, the Prospect. Her mission was not just to see America, but to experience it, to collect stories and challenge the small-town narrative she knew. The vibrancy of the Vieux Carré copyright. Her first major stop was the rhythmic, steaming city of New Orleans. Stepping onto the cobblestones of the French Quarter, Emily felt a visceral jolt, to a stark contrast to the familiar stillness of Willow Creek. The air was thick with the scent of jasmine, sugar, and old stone. She spent days lost in the labyrinthine streets, where every balcony dripped with history. The true magic, however, was in the sound. On Frenchman Street, she discovered a small club where the jazz band wasn't just playing music, they were weaving the city's soul. She found herself dancing for hours, a sense of joyous, unbridled freedom washing over her. Here, she realized that adventure was not a physical distance covered, but an emotional wall broken down. She sketched the musicians, the bagnet sellers, and the street artists, her sketchbook slowly filling with the vibrancy she was seeking. The humility of the chasm next, the Prospect carried her westward, through the flat, sun-baked plains of Texas and into the deep canyons of Arizona. Her destination, the Grand Canyon. As she stood at Mather Point, the sun dipping below the mile-deep chasm, the feeling was not just awe, it was a profound, almost paralyzing humility. The vastness of the geological timescale, hundreds of millions of years carved into the earth, made her 25 years feel like a fleeting breath. It was a moment of intense reflection, where she questioned the importance of every small worry she'd ever carried. One quiet evening, sketching the silhouettes of the buttes, she met an elderly Hopi park ranger named Silas. Silas didn't just point out landmarks, he shared stories of the Pishalabaya, the Hopi concept of continuous life here, and spoke of the earth as a living relative. "You are not small here, Emily," he told her, his voice a low, resonant rumble. "You are simply part of something infinitely large and enduring. That is where true strength is found." This meeting transformed her reflection from a feeling of being insignificant into a feeling of being intrinsically connected to something ancient and eternal. The alchemy of creativity. From the dust of the desert, Emily drove to the fog-kissed, vertical energy of San Francisco. The city, with its hills and bohemian spirit, beckoned her toward a different kind of inner work. Here, in a small gallery near Golden Gate Park, she met a collective of struggling but passionate artists. They inspired her to stop merely documenting her travels and start expressing the emotions they evoked. She spent 2 weeks immersed in a borrowed studio, working with oil paints. She didn't paint landscapes, she painted feelings. The fiery freedom of the New Orleans jazz, the purple and orange humility of the Grand Canyon, all poured onto the canvas. It was a transformative period where she realized that her indomitable spirit wasn't for pushing forward, but for creating something lasting. Resilience. On the plains, the journey took an unexpected detour as she crossed the endless, golden plains of Kansas. The Prospect sputtered and died just outside a tiny town, leaving Emily stranded under a sky so immense it felt close enough to touch. A battered red pickup truck pulled up, and out stepped Tom, a kind, weather-beaten farmer. He towed her car back to his farm, a sprawling patchwork of corn and wheat that his family had worked for 5 generations. Emily's 2-day mechanical delay turned into a 10-day immersion. She didn't just volunteer, she lived their life. She rose before dawn to the smell of coffee and rich earth, mended fences, and learned to check the soil for the critical balance of moisture. Tom shared stories of the market crashes, the devastating droughts, and the resilience of his ancestors. Emily realized that resilience wasn't just an internal quality she carried, it was a communal act, a shared burden of survival and joy. She came to understand that the country was sustained not by grand spectacles, but by the quiet, tireless work happening in its overlooked corners. The ambition of the metropolis, her final destination before turning east, was the relentless, blinding pulse of New York City. The towering glass and steel were a stark, cold contrast to the warmth of Tom's farm. Navigating the hurried crowds and the ceaseless motion of Manhattan, Emily felt a jolt of urgency and a strange kind of ambition. Here, she witnessed people pursuing their dreams with a feverish, uncompromising dedication. She spent her days walking through museums and bookstores, soaking in the collective history and aspiration. New York showed her that the journey of hope required not just heart, but purpose and relentless action. It was the final puzzle piece, combining the patience of the plains with the speed of the city. Returned to Willow Creek after 6 months and thousands of miles, Emily returned to Willow Creek. She wasn't the girl who left. Her eyes held the depth of the canyons, her hands were calloused from the Kansas soil, and her mind was alive with the vibrant colors of the West. She realized that America was not merely a place, it was a tapestry of stories, loud, quiet, ancient, and ambitious, all woven together by the people who lived them. She unpacked her bags and, with the clarity of someone who finally knows her own voice, she began to write. Her book, titled The Journey of Hope, was her way of sharing the profound lesson of the road. The true adventure lies not just in the beautiful places you visit, but in the connections you make, the humility you gain, and the stories you carry within. Her journey became a symbol of help and inspiration for her town, reminding everyone in Willow Creek that the greatest story is always the one waiting to unfold. Would you like to explore another character's perspective from this story? Perhaps the farmer Tom or the artist in San Francisco. The final lesson Emily carried back was that the journey never truly ends. Even as she settled back into the quiet rhythm of Ohio life, her senses remained sharpened by the cacophony of the city and the silence of the plains. She was no longer waiting for a grand event. She had learned to see the daily miracle in the rising sun, the familiar faces, and the simple act of writing. The map of the United States, now framed and hung above her desk, was a symbol not of places crossed off, but of potential connections waiting to be made, a constant, hopeful reminder that life itself is the most beautiful, sprawling, and unending adventure of all. The end.